patiently waiting on my dreams to come true, hoping and praying one day that they do. Oh, I don't know how, and I don't know when, just patiently waiting till then. Patiently waiting each day that goes by, staring out windows at stars in the sky, imagining one day I'll be one of them, but patiently waiting till then. Maybe I'm wasting time, maybe I've lost my mind, maybe this whole thing is a joke and no one let me know. Still I'm patiently waiting with you by my side, trusting one day that I can provide the life you've deserved but never demand. Oh, patiently waiting till then, the life you've deserved but never demand. Patiently waiting, patiently waiting till then.
Let's make this love last till Valentine's. Let's spend this night together. Let this fire burn inside our hearts. Let us soak in all the pleasure. Now that the rain is slowly pitter-patting, we are lost inside our lover's nest. We don't need the world, we just need us. What if we'd stay like this forever? These wine-colored days, summer is gone. Deep cold velvet nights when we are one. I'll come together now, soon the sun will melt this love. We could part and never look back. Life will shortly have us falling flat. By the springtime we'll be strangers. These wine-colored days, summer is gone. Deep cold velvet nights when we are one. All comes together now, let's let this love last till Valentine's. Who knows, it might just last forever. We don't need the world, we just need us. I wish we'd stay like this together. We don't need the world, we just need us. I wish we'd stay like this forever. A little different than all the rest. I'm quite old-fashioned where I had sometimes played chess. And when I'm out, I'm looking for that vintage fling. But all complexions that I adore, so hard to find, these seem impossible to score. So I dream on to someday find that vintage love. I kept on looking, but everyone's such a bore. And out of a sudden, you came through the door. At the next table, your whiskey neat. The lights were dimmed as our eyes met and you saw me. And forevermore, I like to share that vintage dream. And I kept on looking, but everyone's such a bore. And out of a sudden, you came through the door. At the next table, your whiskey neat. The lights were dimmed as our eyes met and you saw me. And forevermore, I like to share that vintage dream. And forevermore, we're living in that vintage dream.
Here comes the moon, held by my love, to shine on you with a light child, held by my love, to offer hope to a world with light from above. How does a tiny brilliance extend such a hope to the world? The answer is found inside of you. You hold the power to guide people home who are lost in the dark. Your heart burns much brighter than the moon. You hold the power to guide people home who are lost in the dark. Your heart burns much brighter than the moon. I thought it would be like poetry, that feeling of when eyes meet. They said it would feel so easy, like how a bird takes to the trees. They've written the songs and films and books of how it would take just one timely look to dance and fall your way into love. And that's how you'll know he's the one. It feels like way back when. I wish I had known it then. There's no such thing as a soulmate, 'cause love is what you make of it. I think I've got a taste of it. I wish I had known all of this before. I wish I had known, but at least now I know. I thought summer vacation would never end. That feeling of sinking toes in the sand. They said to enjoy it while you can, but those words never seem to land. It feels like way back when. I wish I had known it then. That time is the quickest of thieves.